burps, especially ones that come through your nose, are gross.
They are gross.
Like if you can fix it or not, that's gross. Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Ullman.
I'm Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
And I'm Maddy Grace Biffle-Webbin.
And welcome to year 3, bitches.
We're finally
Today
here.
we will be discussing we did it.
Yeah, we've been doing RPG Book Club for exactly 2 years.
So much of my life wasted on games that...
Exactly 2 years, also known as 30 months.
Yes, also known as significantly more than 2 years.
But today we'll be playing the first part of the first game of year 3, which was a sequel to the second to last game of year 2, Chrono Cross.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. We will be discussing everything up until the developments at the end of Viper Manor. So if you are not caught up yet, pause it and go get this game. It's literally still in print, so it only costs you $8 for a complete in-box mint condition copy from Square Enix's website.
It's actually not true.
No excuse.
You're lying. You're wrong about that. It's not in print. It's sold out. It's like
Really?
in print theoretically, and it has a web page. But if you go there, they say sold out and give us your email to get on a list.
Oh.
Yeah, but you're basic.
There were copies because I checked when we were talking about it the other day. I did check.
Are you sure?
And there
because
were copies,
literally the next day
out.
there were 0 copies.
Maybe it was the next day. I mean, it was on sale for $8 instead of the $15.99. It was half off.
All I know is I went and tried to buy it, and it was like, no, there aren't any. And I was like, oh. Anyway, the point is, you're either literally right or you're basically right. The point is, the game is very easy to acquire.
If it's not on sale for $8 for a complete in-box copy on Square Enix's website, it's on sale for $10 on PlayStation Network for PSP, Vita, or PS3.
Yep. And I got a boxed one off
cheap.
of eBay for $13, and that was including the shipping. So pretty easy.
Yeah, it's a very accessible game, and everyone should play it.
Except for me, I paid $200 for it.
Yes.
Oh yeah, actually, technically, I'll talk about that when we talk about our weeks.
Yeah. So, how was everybody's week?
You first, Eli. I mean, you don't have to go first, but yeah.
Oh, what? Me?
How was your week?
I was just saying you go first.
I had a staycation. We were supposed to go to New Orleans, but coronavirus happened, and it would have been fine. We would have stayed in the French Quarter with my parents and just like gotten takeout every night and just like gone out with masks and done like little touristy things and just kind of gotten away. Except the timeshare where my parents were staying, it's called the Quarter House, apparently had a fire recently.
Oh, shit.
So thankfully, and the Quarter House is a historic building. Thankfully, it is salvageable. They're doing repairs and everything, but it's not going to be done for like a year. So they were going to put us in a different timeshare, but that timeshare was a mile outside of the French Quarter, and you don't want to drive in the French Quarter. So my parents were like, we're just not going to go. It's just not going to be, it's just going to be too much of a hassle. And they said Ken and I could go, but I talked to Ken about it, and he wasn't feeling it. He was too worried. So we decided against that, and I just stayed home for 10 days and didn't work, as opposed to staying home and working. And it was
good.
It was very nice not working for those 10 days. And I would like that to be forever, please. Not going to happen. In fact, I don't think I'll be able to retire until I'm like 183 or something like that. It's a rough estimate, but yeah, I'm just.
Have you seen the Unraveled episode about when can Mario retire?
Oh my god,
no!
I have. Yeah, it's pretty great.
It's so good. So he's like doing the math of like, oh well, let's compare. Like in Mario RPG, a pair of shorts is 15 coins. So if 15 coins would be like $2, and then he goes on like, and then he's like, but wait, in New Super Mario Brothers, a pair of shorts is 100 coins, and so there's inflation, and he calculates it all, and then he's like, so Mario would have to earn 2 billion coins a year to be able to retire. He's like, that's okay. Let's fudge the math. And then at the end, he's like, okay, so what if 1 coin equals $1 and there's no inflation? And he starts saving right now if he was, I don't know, 27 years old like me, and could he retire? but if Mario can't retire, then I can't retire.
Yeah. What chance do we have?
Right. It's so good.
I fucking love Unraveled. Brian is a treasure. Like, to this day, one of my favorite phrases is, why do piranha plant have bones in it?
Speaking of Unraveled, that segues perfectly into my week, because my week has been a doozy.
Oh, Unraveled.
Has it been Unraveled?
I get it.
Yeah.
No, it segues even better than that. So last week, I moved to Madison, Wisconsin, and to be able to stay up all night to drive while the kids were asleep, I stayed up the night before binging Unraveled, and I watched every single episode. And so it was a perfect segue. But yeah, the drive up to Madison was fairly smooth, a lot smoother than I thought it would be. But so right before the drive, I found out that my car didn't have a trailer hitch like I thought it did, and that costs like $500 to get a trailer hitch. So I had to pay $500 the day before. I had to pay thousands of dollars to move across the country, and that was a lot of stress. So I did that, got the U-Haul loaded. Turns out my entire life fits in a 5x8 box, which is cool. Then we left a little bit early because we were planning on leaving right as the kids were going to sleep, but we were antsy and everything was loaded and we had nothing better to do. So we left a little bit early. So we left at 5 p.m. and we drove until not the next 2 o'clock in the morning, but the 2 o'clock in the morning after that. Because when you're towing a U-Haul, you only can go 55 miles an hour. And so all of my estimates were going the speed limit, and you don't get to go the speed limit when you're towing a U-Haul. So it took us super late, but I met our son, Matt Jorgensen, and he's a doll face. He's going to be fostering our kitty because this apartment was the only one we could get on a short notice, and it doesn't let us have kitties. So he's going to foster her until next year when we either get an apartment that will let us have a kitty or maybe buy a house because my credit's in good shape. But we'll see what that happens next
Love it when
next
your credit's
time.
in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You love to see it.
I very love to see it. But fast forward to the first, which I guess was part of that. So what? Not really fast forward. It's just normal play speed. We're now at the first. I check my bank account, and I have enough money to do all of the things. So I pay my rent for Madison, and then I pay my rent for Austin because they overlapped by a month. And I checked all of my accounts afterwards, and we still had some like $500, and I'm like, dude, perfect, great. So we bought like groceries and stuff like that to get us started, and then turns out that $500 was not extra. That was part of the rent payment that I had miscalculated. So my check bounced for my Austin rent, not my Madison rent. So if Austin is mad at me and keeps
charging
me late fees, I don't have to worry about them kicking me out because I don't live there.
Yeah. Imagine if they sent a letter like, we're going to evict you, and you're like, bitch, I ain't even there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, like if more and more late fees stack up and I have to like pay it down off my next check or whatever, that's fine because they can't evict me. The apartment's empty. So who gives a shit?
That's really funny.
That was still a lot of stress to just have it dawn on me that, oh shit, I think I'll eat it now with rent payment. So
you do it the second time. I had a money scare this week too, which I won't go into, but it came out to not a rent scare, an unexpected money scare. $450. And the one thing about it is that I panicked and paid it immediately instead of like calling and yelling at someone, which is annoying because it could have been $175 instead of $450.
Hate when that happens.
The other bit, it's still money I owe. It's money I owe on a loan, but I shouldn't have had to pay it. Is the thing at this point, you know what I mean? But I panicked because I see overdue and I'm like, fuck. And then later I'm like, wait a second, that was obviously a mistake. God damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one was a parking ticket, which I legitimately owed. So anyway.
Yeah. Other than that, Madison is great. They have a local soda called Doc X. I don't know if you pronounce the X. It's in a different font. I say Doc X to myself. I haven't asked a local.
It's actually pronounced Doc Cross. No, wait, no, it's just Doc. It's like Hunter Hunter, right? You don't pronounce the X.
Yeah. But it's a black cherry soda, and it tastes like. It doesn't taste like Dr. Pepper, and it doesn't taste like Cherry Coke, but there you go. And it's somewhere in there, and it's real tasty and real delicious.
And made in Microsoft Word.
Yes. And
why else would it be called a Doc X?
Yeah. Oh God, I didn't even think of that. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's the joke.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you.
But that's great. The Wisconsin version of HEB is called Hy-Vee, and they're real cool. They don't have as good of deals as HEB does. I still miss.
Nowhere has ever had as good deals as HEB, but
HEB is so good. But Hy-Vee has like a whole food court type setup, and their pizzas are chunky and melty and delicious. And I'm living my best life.
Living La Pizza Loca?
Yes. And as soon as
the dumbest joke I've ever made. I'm sorry.
You're on a roll today. Eli, don't be nicer to yourself. You've made plenty of dumber jokes than that.
Right. I just need to set the bar lower.
Yeah. But yeah, as soon as these money-based troubles are over and all of our furniture gets here in 5 days, things will be coming up Millhouse, which will be exciting because it's super cheap here, and I'm digging it.
That fucking rules.
What about you, Maddy? Besides your money troubles, what's happening to you this week?
I'm doing mostly really good. I had some money troubles and some other ones that aren't related, but like I'm still doing fine. Thanks basically to Bernie Sanders, pretty much. Which those Bernie bucks have ended now, which is a damn shame. But anyway, I don't know. I'm doing good. I'm still trying very, very, very actively to get a new job, and I actually made some interesting progress on that front that I won't share. But it's real neat. I feel like I worked a shit ton. My hours, because I've been having pretty low hours for this, very low hours for this whole pandemic, which is why I've been on unemployment assistance and stuff like that. Anyway, my hours have been oscillating between like 12 and 18 for like the last 2 months or so, and I've gotten really used to it. Mm-hmm. Also, frankly, during Corona times, you don't have as many spoons. Honestly, like working 18 hours in a week, which isn't that much, felt like working 25, 27, 30 hours in a normal week. Like it really felt like a lot because of my mental energy. Anyway, 2 weeks ago I had 14 hours, and last week I had 27.
Oh, geez.
It went up. It literally almost doubled over the course of 1 week. So
Damn.
I was... And again, that's not objectively a shit ton of hours, but it is when you're not used to it, and it is when your mental health isn't great. So it was rough. And this week is similar, although this week's a little bit smaller. This week's probably going to be like maybe 22, something like that. I don't really know. My schedule's very volatile. But yeah, no, it's just, I'm tired. Of a lot of things, and I'm stressed, but it's whatever. But I did start the Chrono Cross stream. Oh, right. So I went through this whole ordeal. So basically, my PS3 died, and I'm really sad about it. I believe I shared that last time. My PS3 that served me well for 12 years. It was a launch PS3 that I got in the year 2008 on the day that Metal Gear Solid 4 came out. And it was a launch one, so it played PS1 and PS2 discs natively, had pure, 100% backwards compatibility with PS2 games. So, because it was 3 consoles in one, and 2 of those consoles were PS1 and PS2, aka 2 of the greatest consoles of all time, and also it was the first thing I ever had to ever play Blu-rays. Let's just say I've used that thing. I've probably interacted with that technological device more than any other technological device I've ever owned, right? So when it finally died, it made me really sad. I was bummed out. I tried to save it for a while, but eventually had to give up and pull the plug on it, and it bums me out. And also, it was frustrating because I had to go through the effort of getting some way to play Chrono Cross. I either had to get a new PS3 or a new PS2. A new PS1 would be redundant because PS2 can play PS1 games, and so can PS3. But the point is, launch PS3 is the only thing that's all 3 of those consoles in one. Mm-hmm. So in order for me to be able to play all my PlayStation games again, I have to buy 2 consoles, which sucks. I have to either buy a I have to buy a PS3 and a PS2, basically. Because if I just buy a PS3, I can't play PS2 games, and vice versa. Both of them can play PS1 games. Anyway, I decided to go with PS2. I finally got one. I got the old fat version of it, which I've never owned before, and I love it. I love that old
It's
chunky.
So good.
It's ugly, but in a beautiful late 90s way. It rules, because I had the Slim when I was a kid. And I got a copy of Chrono Cross in the mail. I had to get a memory card as well, a PS1 memory card, because the guy selling me the PS2 only gave me a PS2 memory card. The point is, and then the guy who was selling it to me was very, very bad at communication. In the way that I realized later, for a while I was like, is this something sketchy going on? Is this weird? Turns out he's just bad at communication. He's like a 55-year-old Chinese man who works at an auto shop and probably isn't very good at email. But eventually I managed to go to his auto shop while he was working and pick up just pop in real quick and pick up the PS2, do the swap, while wearing masks and being COVID safe and stuff like that. And then I finally put the game in after this week-long ordeal, and it doesn't work. But turns out it was just because the disc was dusty. So I took it out and I wiped it off, and then it worked. So, because when you buy something off Craigslist, it's always like, this guy could be fucking with me, right? And like, the guy was at work. He couldn't like demonstrate that the console worked. But like, I trust people, I figure, why is some random guy going to sell me a PS3 for $55 and say it works if it doesn't? Like, he's not lying to me, So when he says it's in good condition and works, I'm just going to believe him. But still, when it didn't read, I was like, you motherfucker, I'm going to fucking scream if this doesn't fucking work. But yeah, no, it worked. It's fine. It's all good. I now can play PS2 and PS1 games. And I got it in time for me to play for this weekend. And I started my stream on Saturday. I streamed for 6 hours and then got fucking owned because I'm stupid. I'll explain why I got owned later. It's kind of funny. And then I did a follow-up stream last night that was only about 30 minutes. All I had to do was beat the boss. And then I was done. And what was y'all's playtime for this week?
I did
what was
not.
it, 5 hours?
5? Oh, I'm surprised.
4 or 5, something
4 or
like
'5,
that.
Yeah.
I think it
Anyway,
was mine was like 4:30 or something like that.
I didn't wipe to anything.
the point is,
so.
I was playing super slow. Again, it was About 7 hours total, like 6.5 and then another half hour. So join me on my stream if you want to see me play a JRPG very slowly. The reason it's very slow is that I often will just do nothing and holler about the graphics. Or
need to start up Good Games Done Slow as fuck stream.
That actually is a thing, if I recall.
I've heard of that,
which sounds cool.
Yeah, I would love to just like do a stream where I chill out and like farm in Stardew Valley very, very slowly, or like just collect everything in Terraria.
And that is my thing with my stream. Like, I'm assuming I'm not in a rush. I'm giving myself the time. I'm just like, look, we're just gonna hang out here, folks. We're just gonna hang out. I might get owned. I might talk to an NPC and then forget what he said because I was streaming. I was reading someone's comment on the stream and then have to talk to the same NPC again because I forgot what he said. Stuff like that. Anyway, point is, tune into my streams. I'm having a good time. That took longer than I expected to talk. I'm sorry, I was rambly. Anyway, that's the last you'll hear from me for a while because Sam's leading this week.
Hell yeah. So, let's listen to some great Yasunori Mitsuda music. It is real good in this game. I like it a lot. And I don't know what it'll be. It'll probably be
the
world
opening
map
theme, Scar of Time. You gotta do Scar of Time.
Opening theme. Yeah. We'll do that. And then we will start talking about this game.
Yeah.
So, this game starts in the middle of things, which is great. It has a really good, like, hype video, but I don't understand any of it because it's all just clips from FMVs that happen later. And
the hype video is set to the music that y'all just heard.
Yes. And it's a real hype video. And while I was watching, I was like, oh, I thought that was a side character, but here she is in FMV, so I'm guessing she's really damn important. So we'll see where that goes. But so you click new game, and the game starts right in the middle of the things. It shows you like a super JRPG-ass castle, and 3 people are running through it. You have Surge, that's us. Kid, that's the girl from the box art in the title screen. And at the time, I didn't realize this, but a random third person.
I love that.
Mine was Oralha. She uses a spear. She's green. She's cool. But then when I had restarted it because I got mad that I missed the 3 optional characters this week. Didn't realize even with speed up, it was going to take me forever. So I stopped. And the second time I got Orcha, the chef. Who did you guys have in the
I think I
opening?
also had Oralha.
Yeah. What about you, Maddy? Who did you have?
I had a character who called me... What did she call me? Well, my character's name was Gohan. She killed me. I think she just called me Gohani, so it'd be like Sergi. Anyway, it was like a cute... She wasn't a furry critter. She was like a girl, but she was like a cute chibi kind of girl. I don't know. We'll see. When we get her again later, I'll remember who it was. But yeah, it's cool. It's really funny because like it's just whatever. You gotta have 3 characters. Game has a lot of characters, so here's another character.
Yeah, it's not. There are 45 playable characters in this game. It doesn't pull from all 45. It pulls from a small subset of like 15. But
probably the ones that you could theoretically have at that point.
Yeah. But,
right, which I guess spoils. This is a flash forward.
Yeah. So after the kids run up to saying we're going to go explore this castle, you get dropped into like a real ass JRPG dungeon. There's not like a sleepy hamlet to explore or anything like that. There's just a normal PlayStation 1 JRPG dungeon. It technically has a puzzle and it has some random battles, and there's no tutorial at all. And it's pretty fucking cool that it just expects you to be able to mash your way blindly through this to see what's going on, which is
you want to know something cool? You can get through it without any battles.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, it's actually pretty trivial for me, who has played the game. Also, I did a dry run of it when I first got the PS2 to make sure it worked. So actually, I did it twice. So I was like, oh, it's really easy to get through this without any battles, huh? So it's kind of funny. It's got this intense music, and you're just like, do, done.
Yeah, because much like Chrono Trigger before it. Also, you'll notice I skipped over the history because this game has a lot going on, and so we're having 3 sections for the entirety of this game. One of which is the ties to Chrono Trigger and or Radical Dreamers and or Xeno section. It has its whole thing. In the words of Mickey Mouse, that's our secret tool that'll help us out later.
Yeah, but we'll get there when we fucking get there.
Yeah. So. Yeah, just like Chrono Trigger, the monsters are visible on screen for this game. There's no random battles. There's some things that feel like random battles because you'll be walking through and there will be nothing on screen and then a bat will fly through. But that happened in Chrono Trigger as well. I remember because I played Chrono Cross before I played Chrono Trigger, and I remembered like going back to play Chrono Trigger and thinking, wow, Chrono Cross has nothing to do with Chrono Trigger. But playing them real close together this time, there's a lot more sequelitis going on than people really give this game credit for.
I was also shocked by that same thing, which y'all will see as we talk about it.
Yeah, because this game is famous for basically just saying, like, fuck you, Chrono Trigger, I'm going to make my own game now. But it kind of doesn't, and that's kind of cool. But, yeah, so when you get up to the top, there's this big-ass door, and Kid is like, hey, Serge, what's gotten into you lately? But Serge doesn't say anything, and you walk up to the door, and it gets all, like, weird and whooshy, and then you see Serge standing over Kid holding a bloody knife and smiling, and it cuts to black. And then, just like Chrono Trigger, it starts with, good morning, Serge, wake up, sleepyhead. And now we get the sleepy JRPG hamlet, and the game starts itself. It is starting with it doesn't literally say 2 months earlier like a B movie would, but we kind of get that feel here,
get that
which
was
is
a prophetic dream. Yeah.
It's real cool. Love that shit.
We'll see only a 2/3 accurate prophetic dream, depending on what characters we use.
Yes.
I find that very
so you can explore the town. I forget what the name of the town is.
Arnie
Village.
Arnie.
And you eventually make your way out to the pier where you meet Lena, who is making a dragon scale necklace, and she needs 3 more scales. And she's like, hey, you're an RPG protagonist. You like quests. Go and find me 3 Komodo dragon scales. And you're like, okay. So
well, notably, she doms you into it because she's your girlfriend.
Yes.
She also says you can't give her any that have just been handed to you. You have to go find them all yourself. And I'm like, how the fuck are you going to know?
Oh, so that, not to skip ahead to our Chrono Cross's dense as fuck section. So that is because if you talk to one of the guys in town, and you basically support him on his dreams, he's like, you know what, that's awesome, and he gives you a Komodo dragon scale,
and
if you go and give
from that,
as if you go and try to give one to her, she goes, that one's not fresh, I need it fresh, get off your ass and go and get it yourself. And so she does know, and so that's to keep that key item in your pocket, because a million years down the line, because Chrono Cross is fucking wild, you'll give that to somebody and the person will join your party. Yeah, love. There's a lot of that shit going on in this game, as we'll find out
I
in a bit.
knew I had to get the Chrono Dragon scales. So when I first, I knew I had to get 3 because I played the game before. So when I first talked to that NPC and he gave me one, I was like, oh, look at me. Because I explored the town and talked to characters instead of going immediately to the dungeon, I saved some time. Look at me. I'm so smart. I'm like bypass. Now I'm only going to have to get 2. And then when she says that line, I was like, God damn it, you motherfucker.
Even better is
I thought I was smart.
I went to the dungeon, did 2, came back, and she's like, no, you have to go get me 3. And I'm like, God damn it.
No, I did that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I actually got 2 of them before I even talked to her to begin with, because I already knew. Anyway, we both tried to be smart, and the game told us that we weren't smart.
No. But it's okay. We'll get a character out of it eventually. But so right next door to the town is a super small dungeon where we have to catch some Komodo dragons to get the scales. It's kind of really cool. You have to like trap them, and like one of them you jump down on from on top, and you have to time your jump. Another one you like back into a corner, and there's another one that's just a little bit slower than you, so you have to just run until you eventually catch up with them. And so you get your 3 Komodo dragon scales, and then you meet her at the beach, where you have a heart-to-heart about how you've been friends for 10 years, ever since you nearly drowned in an accident back in the day. And as she's talking to you, a spooky voice calls out to Surge, and it does a really cool thing where she's talking in text boxes, but the words just like pop up just like randomly on the bottom of the creepy voice that's talking to you. It's a really cool way to sell that on with PS1 technologies. But suddenly Surge gets a flashback to the accident, and see, we had found out from our grandmother back in Arnie that not only did he almost drown, but he almost drowned because he was running away from a panther demon. And so in the flashback, we see that the panther demon is very humanoid looking. He spoilers for 3 hours from now, it's Lynx in the flashback, which is interesting to say the least. But after he gets his flashback, Surge is surrounded by some magic-y circle shit on the ground, and a huge tidal wave comes in and washes him away. But as the water recedes, Surge is in the same place and collapses. And when you come to, there's an old man from the village who doesn't know you whatsoever. And you're like, oh, well, what happened to Lena? He's like, she's back in town babysitting. She doesn't ever come out here. And you're like, oh, okay. And so you make your way back through the dungeon, and it's really cool that the dungeon is subtly different, because it's teasing that you're in a different dimension, and it like doesn't really solidify that until you get back to town. But the dungeon being different, like it has completely different monsters and everything that are a part of it, is the first little like hint, and I really liked that.
Yeah, it's quite neat. The graphics are like pretty much identical, but like you're like, oh, the layout's different. The enemies are stronger. Yeah. That's weird.
Yeah, love that. So
also,
when you get
one of the other things that ties this to Chrono Trigger that I just remembered, they mention a town called Porre, Porre.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely a Chrono Trigger town that I remember.
So Porre, in Chrono Trigger 1 was just a town. If you recall, the kingdom was the kingdom of Guardia, and Porre was just like a town. In fact, I think it might have technically been a town as part of the kingdom of Guardia. I mean, the game's not specific about its politics, right? But in this game, they keep talking about the kingdom of Porre, and in the home dimension where you first start the game, there actually are references to the army of Porre being like basically occupying the place where we currently are. If you talk to the NPCs, you get that. And they even say, if you try to go to this other area, this mountainous area, there's soldiers from Porre who are like, we're here. You can't come here. It's very, very strange. Oh, also, I guess they don't say this anywhere except the game's fucking manual, but this game does take place 20 years after Chrono Trigger. It takes place in AD 1020.
Yeah, so what the thing about Porre is if you played the dumb Pokemon knockoff bonus dungeon of Chrono Trigger DS, which, as you recall, I turned it on, saw it was a dumb monster battling bullshit, and never went back into it ever again. You find out that in the 20 years after 1000 AD, poor rises up, and the reason it rises up is Dalton's bitch ass, after he gets exploded, he gets exploded through time, lands in Poor, convinces them to break off from Guardia and go and attack, and that's why they're a big thingy right here. It's questionably canon. That's the only place it's brought up, and that was made 10 years after Chrono Cross. So
see, that's the thing. Knows? I was about to say that's fucking stupid, because when at the time Chrono Cross was made, that wasn't canon. So like, I don't really care. But then you mentioned Dalton, and I'm like, wait, now I'm on board. This is great. Actually, I love this.
Yeah. There's a lot of weirdness, and that's why I made a whole section to go over the weirdness that is Chrono Cross, and we'll get to that later. But because I want to be able to talk about it, referencing things specifically that come up. But so you get back to the town, and your house is occupied by someone else. They've never even heard of your mom or you, and there's flowers everywhere now, and the music is different, and interesting. So you get back to Lena, and she's like, that's weird. You remind me of the boy who died 10 years ago. And right after he died, his mom died too. That boy's name? Albert Einstein.
Good one.
So yeah, Serge is dead. And to prove it, your grave is on Cape Howell. So of course you beeline it over to Cape Howell and go to your own funeral. You read your tombstone, and it's kind of poetic. Probably is a foreshadowing to something that happens later. There's a lot of times in this game so far that like people will will phrase something in a way that a normal person wouldn't say. So it's probably going to come up again later. Mm-hmm. And the tombstone was one of those.
I'll give a little bit of guidance on this issue, having played the game. Okay, so you know fucking Xenogears, and yes. You know how sometimes Xenogears is normal, but other times they just say shit like
it's Xenogears.
And they're like the dream of the future is tomorrow's today, and our souls are entwined through time, and thus the dance of hope dreams on to eternity. Okay, so like that's most of this game.
Yeah.
So I just like that's what we're dealing with. That's not a plot thing.
I have a specific one in my memorable moments that I want to save. But
don't think too hard about it. If a nice poetic line about fate or destiny or memory shows up, either you might, for me, 50% of the time, I actually think it's really lovely and kind of beautiful, and 50% of the time, I think it's something that a sophomore in college wrote and it's stupid. It's not foreshadowing. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So, after we read our tombstone, this guy named Karsh comes up, and he's like, "Oh, you must be Serge's ghost, just like he was expecting to show up here on this time." And you're like, "Well, that's fucking
the day
weird."
Of my daughter's wedding.
Yes.
Wait, no. At this time of day, in this part of the country, located precisely on Cape Howell. Yes.
Yes. So they try to grab Serge, but then Kid shows up and helps us fight them off. And she's like, "Hey, let me join you." And I, of course, in the several times I've tried to start this game, have just said yes and clicked yes, not even knowing that gameplay-wise that is the wrong answer, because you're supposed to say no and get 2 party members, one of which is the best blue mage in the game. So...
yeah, so this is the point at which the game reveals itself that it has about 50 billion paths through this game.
You also have to tell her to fuck off multiple times in order to get her to actually fuck off.
Yeah, it feels like a "but thou mustn't," but it's not.
I felt kind of bad, but then I brought her into my party later, and I'm like, I hate you. So
Yeah.
I didn't feel as bad about telling her to fuck off at that point.
Yeah.
I love Kid. I think she's awesome.
Yeah.
Her design is
I
fucking
love her
sick.
too.
She's super spunky, and every time she tells other characters to go fuck themselves, she has like really, really good lines.
I mean, I do love that about her. What I don't love about her is that she does things that I don't want her to do. Like take a pendant off of a wall that leads to a trap that I said I didn't want to take. And then she fucking did it. God damn it.
It's okay. It's not permanent. You can go back
and
get
I did. But I was still mad.
So, Kid does or does not decide to join us, and after we take a nap at somewhere that is not our house, we head off to Termina, which is also the plot of Majora's Mask.
Nah, that's true.
So, we make our way through Fossil Valley, which is a short little nothing dungeon, but lo and behold, Salt and Pebbles here.
I think there's an important plot element. I think there's an important plot point here. Fossil Valley is currently being occupied and done an archaeological excavation, not by the army of Poor, but by the army of Termina. That's
so actually by the Acacia Dragoons, who are a subset of the army of Poor, which we find out in the exposition dump in Viper Manor. It is different from Homeworld.
The Dragoons are not a subsidiary of Poor. It's different. Poor has not invaded in this universe.
They are. It brings it up in the thingy. I wrote notes on it because I was confused.
All right, cool.
But
it's different.
Zoa's. It is different. He
Fight.
No, that's interesting.
They are not actively occupying, but they have been folded under the wing in this one. That's the difference. It's not an invading force. It is a bro force in this.
So just regular old hegemony then, instead of actual imperialism. Got it.
Yeah. So we whoop Salt and Pepper's ass. So Salt and Pepper are,
and they're like, what a man, what a mighty good man.
They are the recurring.
Now I do.
They're recurring tutorial bosses, much like Ozzy Slash and Flea. That's why they have condiment names, because Ozzy Slash and Flea were vinegar, mayonnaise, and what was the other one? Can't remember the other one. Oh, soy sauce. That's
bullshit.
And so they also are condiments. Spoilers: there's a ketchup in this game.
Oh my god!
So they're another Chrono Trigger reference, riffing on that, which is pretty cool. So we make it over to Termina, and this is one of the first times that the game completely and totally opens up.
And you find out you've been met with a terrible fate.
Yes. So, as I mentioned, this game has 45 recruitable characters, and you only can get all 45 on a New Game Plus, because at times like this, they lock each other out, and so you have to pick some over the others to get a route through the game. We need need a guide into Viper Manor, and which guide you pick locks you out of the other two characters. But I was slightly getting ahead of myself. So the guys that attacked us are the Acacia Dragoons, as I mentioned, and their hideout is in Viper Manor, which is super duper guarded and impossible to enter. That's why we need a guide, and we can pick either Pierre, Guile, or Nikki. I chose Nikki, and after we get to the manor, you guys can fill in any differences in the process, because every time I've played the game, I didn't realize that this was a branching path. I never even stumbled into the room with Pierre until this playthrough. So I've always picked Nikki, so I literally have no idea what's different. So when we first get to Termina, we see a boy named Glenn, whose reference is intended, and he's doing a funeral / memorial / thing for a man named Dario at a big ass sword that's stuck in the ground, and he's accompanied by this girl named Riddell. They are really nice to you. You're really nice to them. That will be important later. So for Nikki's route, you've heard NPC chatter all like throughout Another World since you've got here that there's a musician heartthrob that's in town. Everybody's going crazy for him. He's Chrono Cross's version of BTS. Everybody is nutso over him. And he is having a show in Termina. So you follow all of the signs, and it takes you over to the dock, and you can go onto his party barge and try to meet him there. But when you get there, someone says, so Nikki's been like down in the dumps lately, and he just ran off into the fucking forest, and we don't know what's up. And then Miki, his bandmate, runs in and is like, I'll distract the guards for you so that you can get into the Shadow Forest and find Nikki and bring him back safe. And we're like, okay, cool. So you run off and do the forest dungeon, and it's pretty cool. You have to find the right pollen to lure the right monster over to this big monster that's guarding the way to go. And when you take it to him, he either will wake up, be mad, and fight you, or if you get the right one, he eats the monster, which doesn't set well with him, and he shrinks to like knee height, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. Here, take this," and he gives you a text box frame, and he runs away, which is cute. But So when you see Nikki in the forest, he's losing a fight against some monsters that we save him from. So he says, "Take me with you to Viper Manor. I think my sister is there. I need your help to save her." And you're like, "Okay, cool." And away you go. So after you deal with that monster, a dragoon named Zoa, he's one of the 4 devas of the Acacia Dragoons. He jumps down and is like, "You guys cannot pass." So him and Salt and Pepper fight us. We kick their ass, and we make our way to Viper Manor by going through the well at the end of the forest. There's a waterway that connects to their well, and we climb up there. What are the other routes? What's different?
With Guile, and apparently he's like the easiest one, which made me happy. But
he's also a Chrono Trigger / Radical Dreamers reference that I'll get into later.
Nice. Yeah, he's a lot like Magus in at least the way that he looks and moves, because he floats around, which is cool. And he's got like long flowing blue-white hair, and he's kind of hot, not gonna lie.
He is hot.
But yeah, so you have to go talk to Korcha again, which finding him, like, first of all, the screen on the Vita is super fucking tiny. It doesn't even take up the whole Vita screen when you play this on it.
You can make it full screen in the settings. I'll show you how to do that to help.
Will it
marginally
stretch out?
Well, you don't have to do widescreen. You can just do fit best.
Yeah,
to make it a little
it's
bit
like
bigger.
a little better. Yeah, a little bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Korcha is 3 pixels tall and doesn't look like Korcha. And I couldn't figure out how to get to him because this game is not intuitive about its paths at times.
Yeah. That screen's the worst one in the game so far, but it's real bad.
There was one earlier on that had like a couple of chests, and the guide I saw said like jump into a hole in the top left path to get to it, and I'm like, I literally can't. So I just didn't get those chests, and it's
me neither.
whatever. But anyway, so yeah, I finally got over to Korcha. He takes us on a boat, and we go around to the bluffs. As we traveled upwards, a soldier saw us and was like, "It's time for the rocks!" And just starts fucking chucking rocks at us the entire time. So not only do I have to climb up these really treacherous cliffs where like I could get knocked off by a blast of water, because I guess like there's just water shooting out of these rocks every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Someone inside has a big super soaker or something. Fire hose. But every time I got hit by a rock, everybody took 10 HP of damage, which is great. Yeah, wonderful. Love it. Finally got to the top and killed the soldier guy, and then some big bird monster came and attacked me. Got through that, and then I was up like on top of the manor, like right in almost the exact spot that I needed to be to get into the stables. So that part at least was not too bad, except for the fact that I got caught by the spotlight and it wouldn't let me go. I had to fight 3 waves of frickin' bosses or mobs. I mean, they were mooks, so they were real easy, but it was annoying as fuck. But yeah, the worst part of that was climbing up the bluffs. But I mean, I got through it. I haven't wiped yet. It's going to happen, and I'm going to be very mad about it. Yeah. So,
what about Pierre, Maddy?
So my thing is, and I'm in the same boat as you, Sam. I've played the game at least twice to completion, and 1 or 2 times maybe like dabbling. And every time I get Nikki, and the thing that this game does is it doesn't reveal that there's other paths. Like, whatever path you're on, you just feel like it's the critical path, which is really cool. I actually think that's good and not bad. I don't know, some people can say that that's bad, but I think it's cool. I think it's cool the game's not constantly like, by the way, there's a split here. Hey, did you notice there's a split here? Hey, go over. Did you try doing this? It's just like, you just go. And anyway, so that's why every time I remember the last time I tried playing the game in college, I even tried to not get Nikki and somehow ended up getting Nikki. Like, I was like, I can't figure out how to do an alternate path in this game. Well, I must have just been stupid because it's not really that hard. All you got, well, I did remember how to get Nikki, so I was like, okay, I'm very explicitly not doing that. I'm not going anywhere near that fucking area, right? So anyway, if you go to the north part of Termina, it's actually very, very, very simple. You go to the north part of Termina, and you go into this building, and there's some characters who live in this building that aren't related to Pierre. I think Pierre's just like staying with them as a guest. The stuff happening in this building is actually quite interesting, and I like it, but I won't go into it. And then you go to the south of this building, and there's Pierre. And Pierre is just a French-ass motherfucker. He's just the most French person. He talked with a French ass.
There's a lot of dumb accents in this game.
He talks with a French ass accent. He has a big purple hat. He's honestly kind of cool. He's a swordsman. And he, so as Sam mentioned, there are 4 Viper Devas. They're the 4 like warriors of under General Viper. But there's actually only 3 because one of them died a while back, which you may have already said that too. But one of them died a while back, so there's an opening, right? And the one that died is a major plot point for a variety of characters. Like, it's related to Glenn's story, it's related to, there's a lot going on there. But there's an opening. So he's like, hey, I'm going to apply to be the Deva. I'm a swordsman. I have my rapier, and I'm very, very good. And I even have a hero medal, which is interesting. It could be, as obviously another Chrono Trigger reference. Maybe it's the same hero medal. Maybe he's a faker, just like
Tata.
Just like Tata. Maybe he's a faker, you know? We don't really know, and you don't learn a lot about him. I know that we learn a lot about Guile and Nikki later in the game, so maybe we also learn more about Pierre later in the game. Nikki for sure becomes very important. I guess he's important even if he's not in your party. I don't know.
I don't know,
but
we'll see.
He's got a whole fucking quest that you have to do. It's mandatory. But anyway, so Pierre's thing, he's just very French, and anyway, he's like, oh, I lost my hero medal. You go outside, the hero medal is very nearby. I forget. Oh, no, that's not true. You don't just find it. A kid has it. So like, he dropped it and some kid took it. And the kid's like, well, I guess I should return it since it's not mine. Like, once you tell him like, hey, that random thing you found, someone's looking for it. He's like, okay. So he gives it back to you. You give it to Pierre. And then he basically is like, I'm going to go apply to be whatever. But he says that we should come with him. I'm not really sure why. I forget. I will say, when you're streaming a game, I'm enjoying streaming a lot, but it makes it harder to focus, right? This is the first time I've streamed an RPG. I mostly stream action games. And action games, it's funny. You have to pay more attention because literally if you stop looking at the screen for a second, you'll die. but it's a different kind of attention. It's focusing on geometry and numbers and positioning and not dying. Whereas in RPG, you're thinking about words and plot and characters. So doing that while streaming is a different experience. So the point is, I don't remember, but he does the thing where he says that we're going to be his bodyguards and we're joining his party, which is always a cute thing. So he's like, okay, let's go. So instead of going through a forest or instead of going through the bluffs at the bottom, we just walk right in the front door. And we go up to the gate, and it's daytime, and there's this big cool Viper gate that opens with like a cool snake mechanism. And we talk to the guards, and he's like, I'm here to show off my stuff and be the new Deva. Look, here's my hero medal. And the guards are like, okay, we're not letting you in. Like, we don't know who you are. We don't know what that medal is. Like, fuck off. And then he's like, damn it, what do we do? And we fall back, and he's like, they're not going to let us in. And we get to choose to either find another way in or be sneaky or to just, like, fuck them up. And I don't know if it's a but thou must or not, because the path is already split 3 ways. If this path also has a split, that'd be interesting. That's a lot of splits. I don't know. Maybe it's a but thou must, but I choose let's fuck them up. So we fuck them up. And then the door opens. I don't know how the door opens if we fuck them up. I'm not sure. Oh, maybe once we fuck them up, someone else appears to try and get us, and we fuck them up too. Anyway, it's quite funny because the whole idea was we can't get in on our own. We need someone else to get us in. Oh, this guy has the hero medal. He has an in, right? So he'll get us in. But then we end up just murdering the guards anyway. It's like, wait, we could have just murdered we could have murdered the guards without you. We could have just murdered the guards. We didn't need you to do that. But anyway, it's quite funny. But then after we fuck up the guards, Pierre is like, we shouldn't, I just realized we probably shouldn't break into this place illegally right now. We should probably wait till nighttime, which is to say, in the other 2 paths, you sneak in at nighttime, and we didn't make daytime graphics for this area. So we, like, hide around the corner until it's nighttime, and then we sneak in. When we sneak in, we fight Sult and Pepor again, which, Sam, it seems like you had to do this already too?
Yes.
Okay.
We fought him with Zoa.
They were with Zoa, and was Ketchup there too?
No, Ketchup was not in mine.
So for this route, we fight Salt and Pepor still in the courtyard, and they have Ketchup with them. And it's just another stupid joke battle, basically. This time around, Salt and Pepor remembered how the game system works. They remembered to get elements that are the right kind of element, and Ketchup killed Surge in 1 hit, and I was like, oh, fuck. But then, it turns out that's planned. Ketchup revives us, and no, sorry, that's not true. Pepor revives us. And Salt is like, why did you do that? And Pepor's like, I felt bad. He says it's not exactly that. It's a little different than that, but no, he basically is like, I felt bad, and also I felt like we were beating them too easy or something like that. I don't know. So he revives us. And then there's some other stupid shit where, right. So it's a pretty tough battle. Ketchup's hitting us for a lot. And then Ketchup has an amazing... So I am in love with the enemies in this game. I did not realize how amazing I love all... Like, it's like Dragon Quest 8 level 3D enemy animations. But anyway, Ketchup has a move where he grabs Salt and uses Salt as a giant baseball bat to smack Pepor into the party.
Oh my god.
Which does a fuck ton of damage to the party, though not enough to kill us, and but knocks out Salt and Pepor. So it turns out everything up until that point in the battle is really just a plot. It's just a gimmick, pre-scripted plot thing. After he does that, Salt and Pepor are gone. It's just Ketchup, and now we just have to fight him and beat him. It's hilarious.
That's great. That's so good.
Yeah, but that's it. So you just bust in and you fuck people up, and then you go right in the front gate, and now it's me. One extra thing I will say, I don't know if this applies to either of y'all, but my party at this point is Surge and Pierre, whom I named Pissman. That's why I can't remember his real name. And a character we haven't talked about yet named Mojo. Did either of y'all get Mojo?
No, I was going to save him for the Chrono Cross is fuck section.
I will have to tell y'all later because he's amazing. He's my favorite character in the game so far, but that's my party. The reason I bring that up is I didn't have Kid in the party, and the way this game handles not having Kid in the party in a dungeon where Kid is extremely important is fucking cool. I'll tell you later, though. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Awesome. So we get into Viper Manor, which is a great dungeon. There are fights. There are a lot of fights, but they feel like secondary and interstitial, and it doesn't seem like Magus's castle. We went in, there were monsters. We fought monsters until we got to the end. Even though Magus's castle was a great dungeon, it still kind of was Magus's castle, and there were bad guys in it.
It was still a dungeon,
This does not feel like that whatsoever. It feels like another town where people are mad at us and sometimes we have to fight them. And so you're just like talking to all these people and exploring the cool place with cool geometry, and it like feels like a real usable place. And then there's a lot of fights that you fight. And
you know what it
it's
reminded me of?
Weird, but really cool.
It reminded me of Shinra Tower.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of the same thing. It's a dungeon that's a lot of talking, a lot of puzzly stuff. It's this whole situation that also has some fights, although it's not nearly as dramatic as Shinra Tower. It's more low-key.
Yeah. But narratively, you make your way into the manor by doing a real dumbass minigame, and then you fall into a trap. And so, Kid, I didn't realize you couldn't have Kid in this thing, so I'm going to just say what Kid does, and Maddy can fix it later. But so Kid taunts the guards into letting you out of the trap, so you then kick their asses and take their clothes, which then lets you investigate the whole dungeon at your leisure without being attacked by everything. There are still a lot of things that you have to fight anyways, but the dungeon itself is incredibly non-linear, so I'll just bullet point the cool infos that you find out, because you basically find out all the shit and then you do the end, and it's cool. So Glenn is an Acacian Dragoon. He's a newbie over there. We knew that he was close to Dario, who was one of the four Devas who had died, so it makes sense that he would be a Dragoon, but we see him here like just in his rank and file, which is kind of cool, because he seems like when you meet him, he's fucking Frog. Like, you see him, his name is Frog, he's got a big ass sword, he's like a noble ass knight, and you're like, okay, cool, there's the Frog character. And then you get here and he's like, yeah, I'm on swab the deck duty today, and it's really cool. I like that world sense. Being a Takahashi game, of course it has world sense. But so we meet two potential party members, Pip and Lucia. Lucia actually is not a reference to Luca. Looks like it is, but it's not. Her name was just too long to fit into the extremely restrictive 5-character limit that you have for character names. So she's called Lucia. It would make sense if she was a Luca reference because she's an inventor, but she's not, because Luca's actually in this game. Spoiler. So they're doing science. It's really cool. Love that scene. But you've learned that Dario and Riddell were engaged, but they were engaged before he died on a trip to an Isle of the Damned about 3 years ago. Karsh was on the same mission, refuses to talk about it. They literally announced their engagement. He left on this thing with his close buddy. He died. His close buddy came back. There's probably some foul play, but only rumors so far.
I have no idea. That sounds totally normal to me. Sounds like a normal, just a normal tragedy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Karsh had orders to bring, quote, Junior back to the manor, meaning Surge. Don't know what that means, but it's a loaded ass term. And the last Deva is Marcy, who's a cute little porcelain doll girl, and this dimension's chief, Radia, I think is his name, the chief of Arnie Village, because
Radius.
What was that?
It was Radius.
Well, Radius.
So chief.
Go on. Never mind. You're good.
So in original our home Arnie Village, Radius was the chief of Arnie Village. In this one, Radius is not the chief; it's somebody else, and Radius is nowhere to be found. We find him here, and he's the prophet of time, and he's dressed like fucking Balthazar, but it's probably a reference and not actually Balthazar. But it's cool. So he's a prophet, and he tells you about the pseudoscience of how dimension hopping works. And I find out that Marcy is Nikki's long-lost sister, but she doesn't remember Nikki, and she gets mad and leaves before that plot can resolve itself.
Holy shit, that's fucking cool. I just thought she was a random bad guy.
Yeah. So finally, we make our way to the top room, and we encounter Harley. Her name is spelt like Marl, but it's pronounced Harley because she's literally a Harlequin. And she's like, not like a Harlequin romance Harlequin. She is a Nights into Dreams ass, full on jester makeup clown ass Harlequin. She is great. I love her.
And whenever Lynx asks her to do things, she's like, "You got it, Mr. L." That's not true. She says some stupid French shit.
She has a very French accent.
Yeah.
But she is Lynx's right-hand man, and she seems to have a soft spot for Surge, going as far as to choosing not to fight us, even though Kid picks a fight like very effectively. They're like about to like trade blows, and Harley is like, you know what? No, Surge, I'd get in trouble if I fucked with you, and I don't want to fuck with you. Meet with me later. Okay, cool.
Also call me.
And also call me. She, like I mentioned earlier, she's featured heavily in the attract mode. I did not remember her being important at all, so we'll see how that develops. And like, it's so much so that she's in the attract mode, and if you let it play on the title screen, the demo that it picks is a conversation with Harley. She's apparently real darn important. But at the very top, we meet the general, who turns out is just a puppet because he doesn't know who Surge is, or like doesn't even like understand when we like, why did you sick our dragoons on you? He's like, dragoons? And it's like, oh, are you like dead in the brain or something? You literally like don't understand anything that's going on. But in walks Lynx, who's a catman, and Kid knows him and is like, the reason I came here, I lied to Surge about the whole Acacia Dragoon carrying thing. I was here to kick ass and take frozen flames, and I'm all out of frozen flames, so I'm just going to kick your ass.
Good one.
And so she's we learn that she's part of the Radical Dreamers, and she's super ferocious and like has a rap sheet. And Lynx mentions that the frozen flame lies at the bottom of the Sea of Eden, where past and future collide. That sounded important. It could have just been Xenogears. So
no,
who knows?
It's a big one.
Okay, if it felt like a big one, that's why I wrote it down.
We're not going to get the frozen flame until disc 2.
Okay. Remind me, how many discs does this game have?
2.
Just 2? Okay. I thought it was just.
I'm actually not sure. Not sure. We get the frozen flame. I know where we get the frozen flame in one of 2 places, and it's either at the end of disc 1 or at the end of disc 2.
Okay, but so Kid is like, Lynx, I'm here to kick your ass, so we're going to kick. I'm going to kick your ass now. And we have a big old fight. Fun fact about Radical Dreamers, to bring it up a little earlier, is Lynx is the final boss of Radical Dreamers, and he has his own music in Radical Dreamers, and he doesn't in this game, and that is a shame because the Radical Dreamers music is great.
And
I'll probably play that one later. But we fight him, and after the fight, it turns out that we were just fighting Lynx's shadow, and he asks Surge, what do you want from this world? To erase your demise from the pages of history? And Surge is like, and freaks the fuck out, like, a lot. And we get an FMV sequence of him, like, staring at the fake frozen flame, and then a huge, like, atom bomb of darkness, and a glowing red thing, and a whole lot of quick cuts, and then we're back in the room, and he just, like, had a quick acid trip, and then he's back. And Lynx says, "The end of the human world is nigh, and when the time comes, Surge, there shall be a huge enmity between you and the world. This is not speculation or prediction, it is history." That phrase, "this is not speculation or prediction, it is history," comes up a lot in this game. I know because that's in the scene where you're talking with Harley in the attract mode.
This game is very this game is very Hegelian. They're doing dialectical materialism. It's great.
Yeah. So Lynx summons a whole lot of more shadows to deal with us, but then Riddell comes in to talk to Viper about something, and Kid takes her hostage, but she whispers in her ear, "Hey, we know you, you know us, you know we're not going to hurt you, we just need to fucking get out of here." And Riddell is like, "Cool, got it, thanks," and like plays along with us so that we can escape, which is cool. And so we all run off towards a balcony because we are in a piece of fiction. And when you're being chased in a piece of fiction, you run upstairs to a place that literally has no egress. Why does everyone do this in every piece of fiction? They're like, "Oh no, the bad guy's coming," and they run up the stairs. It's fucking stupid. It's
so
dead
that
end.
you can
Don't ever
jump
do it.
off the balcony, Sam.
I know, it always happens. But they either hide in a closet and die or jump off the balcony and live. Those are the only two options if you run upstairs when you're being chased. But so Lynx is like, "You have no place to run," and Kid looks over the balcony to see if like she can survive the jump, but that momentary distraction is enough for Lynx, and he throws a fucking knife at her, and it hits her right in the gut, and she stumbles off of the edge. Surge reaches out for her, but he can't grab her in time. So Lynx comes up to taunt him and is like, "What do you live for? What are you willing to die for? I've been waiting a long, long time for you, Surge, the assassin of time, the Chrono Trigger."
Oh,
which is a reference to Chrono Trigger.
I made the exact same. I made the same joke on my stream. I said, "Hey, that's a reference to Chrono Trigger."
Oh, never would have guessed. Thank you for spelling that out.
It's a pretty subtle one, actually. I might have missed it.
Yeah, it went right over my head.
So Lynx offers Surge his hand, but Surge is like, "Nah," and jumps after Kid, and Nikki and presumably Guile and Pierre jump off as well. Then Luna from Sailor Moon walks out on screen and is like, "Would you like to save your game?" And we say yes, and we stop playing for the week.
Yep. So we don't know what happens. We don't know if the characters all just died. I really am glad it has a Luna, because obviously I do know what happens next, but I really like that we got to stop right here and not see what happens next.
Yeah. How is Kid a part of this dungeon, but not a part of this dungeon before we get to the fun fact science corner? Spoiler
alert, this game has, as Sam said, 45 recruitable characters. I thought it was 40, but it's either 40 or 45. And
that's ridiculous.
Most of them are not important. Well, they're not important from a certain point of view. What's up?
Sorry, I just wanted to say real quick, I knew there had to be a lot of characters because when I looked at the screen where I switch characters, there's like a big chunk of empty spaces, and it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know how when you were in Termina, like there were if you explore Termina, there's so many optional cutscenes. And when I say cutscenes, I don't mean dialogue, I mean scripted scenes where characters are moving around and coming on and off screen and saying things. There's like a dozen of them, and they're all with portraited characters. And if you play JRPGs, you know what portraited characters means. It means important characters. So just in Termina, there's like maybe 10 playable characters you meet in Termina.
Yeah.
And when you get to Viper Manor, you meet like 3 more. The game is fucking dense, but it's sort of like Majora's Mask, where like you could say that the characters aren't important, or you could say that that's the main point of the game, right? Like Majora's Mask is a game about a town and the people in it, and the dungeons are kind of an extra part, right? It's like kind of a side thing. I feel like now I'm seeing Chrono Trigger this way, and I really love them. But anyway, the point is, if we're looking at just the main plot of the game, there's like 3 characters that are important. It's Surge, it's Kid, I'll spoil it, yes, it's Harley, Lynx is a villain, not a playable character, but it's Lynx. maybe it's Nikki. Like I said, I remember there being a mandatory quest later with Nikki. It's a very, very small number of characters, but Kid is one of them. So she's shockingly important, which is why it's amazing that you can tell her to fuck off like multiple times in the game. We can tell her we can do something related to Kid next week as well, which is interesting. But if you just don't put her in your party, now she had joined. I didn't tell her to fuck off. I just didn't put her in my party, and the game could have easily programmed the game like, no, you got to have Kid in your party. Duh, she's the one guiding you here. But you can just not. And what happens is, it's super cool. If you don't, she's just there anyway. And as you go through the dungeon, your paths like crisscross a couple of times. Like, you go into the dungeon, and you get trapped right at the beginning. You turn the fucking thing, and then the fucking pull the lever, wrong lever, hole falls, and you fall down, and you're in a cage, and then there's a guard, and you're just stuck in the cage. Nothing happens. Like, you can't do anything. I haven't tried the whole bug the guard thing, and it didn't work. And then after like a minute, you hear some sound effects, and then you see Kid sneaking up the stairs. From the camera angle, you can see you can see her because we're the player, but the guard can't see her. And actually, if you then hit the cage, the guard will turn to face you, and when the guard to say, "Hey, stop that!" And when he does that, Kid runs and she fucking gets him, and then she lets you go, and she's like, "Man, you sure are glad I was here, man. Like, you newbie." And then she runs off, and then she just runs back on screen sometimes. Like whenever we run into Harley. What happened there was we came out of the room with Balthazar and shit, and Harley and Kid are already there having their scene, and we just run into them having it. It's fucking cool. I couldn't believe how, and again, it feels completely natural. Like, if you told me that Kid was not a party member, I would believe it. You know what I mean? Like every way that this game branches just is seamless, and it feels like that's just the way the game is. And I'd never done that before, and it was really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's super cool. Love that shit. But before we this will be the first thing I talk about in the Children's Fun Fact Science Corner. So let's listen to that Lynx fight from Radical Dreamers, because I'm about to talk a shitload about Radical Dreamers, and then we'll go into our second section that needs a cool name. So, as I mentioned many times, this game has a whole lot going on. So a separate section that each week we talk about all of the shit going on that are either Chrono Trigger or Radical Dreamers references, or like this is the second Xeno game and nobody noticed references, all of those sorts of things.
This is absolutely the sequel to Xenogears, in addition to being the sequel to Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, and it's we'll talk about a lot of that stuff here. So I'll explain what Radical Dreamers was for the uninitiated. So Chrono Cross is actually the second attempt at a sequel to Chrono Trigger. The first one was called Radical Dreamers. It was a visual novel that was download only for the Satellaview system, which, if you don't know what it was a satellite hookup for your Super NES. Never came out of Japan. There's a lot of really cool games that were released for it that would have been lost to time if not for game preservationists.
It's weird and amazing.
Shout out to.
There was like a Legend of Zelda Link.
There were 3 Legend of Zelda games.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were trying to experiment with like television. So it would be like you would download episodes and then you would play them, and then like in real time things would happen at certain times of day. Like, it was fucking weird. I guess it's almost like a super lo-fi version of what you get now when you're like playing Fortnite, and then all of a sudden in real life, not in real life, but in real time, like a big hole appears in the sky and everyone playing Fortnite is like, oh, what's going on? It's like these global scripted events. It was like that, but in extremely crude form.
Yeah. Just real cool and real bonkers. So it being a visual novel, it should not have had any fights, but it had random battles, and that was the number one thing people hated about it.
Yep.
Was it was a visual novel with random battles, and it loosely covers the events that we've gone over so far, just expanded and with more Chrono Trigger lore thrown in, and so it follows Kid, Surge, and Gil, who assault on Viper Manor and battle with Lynx and get the Frozen Flame. That is basically what we've done so far. There's just a lot more stuff, such as Viper Manor was on the ruins of the Kingdom of Zeal, which I don't know if that does come up in Chrono Cross, but it would be a cool explanation to why there's an archipelago in 1000 AD that we never ran into, because Zeal crashed into the Earth.
I'll spoil this. There is a reason, and it's not that.
Okay.
So that is not compatible canon.
Yeah, but Radical Dreamers was Masato Kato was really depressed, so Radical Dreamers is fucking dark and depressing, and it also was true in Radical Dreamers that the Kingdom of Guardia that you spend all of Chrono Trigger to save dies within 20 years, and all of your friends are dead, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's a real fucking depressing thing. And he never liked the result of that. He was on a time crunch. They made this game in 3 months, and he's like, you know what? That's not what I want to do. I want to start over. So we made Chrono Cross, which erases Radical Dreamers, but it still like references all of the stuff.
Yeah, so they're not just making it extra clear. They're not both canon. You could consider either of them as a sequel to Chrono Trigger, but not both of them together.
Yes. So Gil, the third party member for Radical Dreamers, what turned out to be Magus in disguise, and Guile from Eli's route was supposed to be Gil, but they trying to fit in a sum up of who Magus is for people who haven't played Chrono Trigger, and have the dramatic reveal that he's Magus the whole time, while being one of the 45 playable characters, didn't really fit in everything. So they just made him a reference to Magus instead of actually being Magus. But then, of course, Chrono Trigger DS, the rascal, made him Magus anyways. So he's Magus from a different dimension whose mind has been wiped. That's why it doesn't fucking come up and it doesn't fucking matter. But Chrono Trigger DS, gotta love it. And there's other differences between Radical Dreamers and Chrono Cross, but we'll cover them later as they are spoilers for Chrono Cross. Then we have seen a bunch of Chrono Trigger references so far that and so I'm going to cover a couple of them real quick. Just bam, 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 bam. Hecrins are apparently a species and not a named dude, and they are everywhere in Nido Archipelago, and their bones are things that dogs like to eat. And that's cool. The world map theme is a tropical version of the Chrono Trigger theme, which fits because we're on a tropical Chrono Trigger world. I am mixed on if I like it, because this game seems far enough away from Chrono Trigger that literally sampling the Chrono Trigger theme seems like too overt, but it is what it is, and there it is. I already mentioned Good Morning Surge is the same Good Morning Chrono as how Chrono Trigger starts. Good Morning Surge is how this game starts. The poor military that I already went over, because Chrono Trigger DS is a rascal. And then so Nikki's name in Japanese is Slash, which is a reference to Guns N' Roses that they were doing as a throwback to Ted Woolsey naming Slash in Chrono Trigger. But then the localizers for Chrono Cross didn't want to mix those references, even though it would be a reference to both the correct Guns N' Roses and their own Chrono Trigger. They changed his name to Nikki after Nikki Sixx, but Nikki is a ripoff of Ziggy Stardust, so they could have called him Ziggy instead. So he is a multitude.
Yeah, and if they named him Ziggy, then he would have been a reference to Xenosaga.
Yeah.
The joke is that Xenosaga came out 2 years after Chrono Cross. That's the joke. Okay.
But also, all of the posters that are about Nikki that you see everywhere say slash on them because they didn't go in and edit.
Oh, I hadn't seen that. That's funny.
Wow.
But so Pierre is a grown-up take on Tata from Chrono Trigger. Salt, pepper, salt, pepper, and ketchup. Like I mentioned, are vinegar, soy sauce, and mayonnaise from Chrono Trigger. You can run into Toma the 14th, who is obviously a reference to Toma, our bro from Chrono Trigger. And it's the Chrono Trigger's running gag of being 13 generations later, plus 20 years later from Chrono Trigger to Chrono Cross. So he's Toma the 14th.
Yep.
You also can't name Surge Chrono, which is the last
that's cool.
Chrono Trigger reference.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe they wanted to just make sure extra sure that you knew that there's not going to be a dumb twist where it turns out he's Chrono. For the record, I'm not playing a joke. That's not a dumb twist.
What happens if you try to name him Chrono? Does it just beep at you?
It just beeps at you and says try again.
That's funny because I thought of doing that in my podcast and then decided to not because that would be stupid. But it turns out I wouldn't have been allowed to.
It doesn't have a profanity filter. You can name him Fucky if you want to, but you can't name him Chrono.
Maybe Chrono is a bad word.
Chrono is the one who saved this whole world, so it's like taking the Lord's name in vain. It's the only true profanity.
Yes. So
Fucky is fine.
Yeah, but Fucky's fine. So a subsection of the subsection is the characters and side quests that we might have missed so far. As Maddy was talking, I realized there was yet another one that I forgot to bring up on this, about Van and his dad, the artist family. But
we can bring him up later when we actually get him, though, because we couldn't actually get him this time. We can just skip it.
So if you get a Hecarim bone from under the bed in one of the houses in Arnie Village at the beginning, you can take it to Poshul, who's in the courtyard, and he will join your party before coming to another world, and he comes with you through the weird portal shit that happens, and it's actually through his expedition that you learn some stuff going on fairly early, since Surge is a silent protagonist. So if you don't have him, you just have to use context clues, which is fine, but if you have Poshul, he'll comment on things that are happening and explain the game a little, which is really cool.
Also, this is a crossover with Pokemon. You're playing as Lieutenant Surge, and that's a Slurpuff.
Yes.
Many years before Slurpuff actually existed.
Also, I just want to say real quick, interestingly enough, Pashol or whatever the way it's spelled is precisely a Russian word, which is weird. I don't know if that's on purpose or not. It probably isn't. But shol means it's walk in the past tense, and pashol is a specific prefix. I believe verbs of motion are very strange in Russian, but I believe that pashol specifically means it means either I or he. It's masculine. It's masculine walked past tense. So he walked specifically unidirectionally. So it's not that he went somewhere and then came back. He walked up to, and then the pa, I believe, is specifically approached. So he, in a walking manner, approached something precisely one time. Is what Pashol means. I don't think that's intentional at all, but I found it funny.
It's not intentional because Poshul is the only character that you can recruit both dimensional versions of. So you can get him before you go, or if, as I'm about to say, you get Lena, you get Poshul as a bonus, and that's the another world.
Oh my god! It's the two different versions of Poshul. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So still in Arnie, if you talk to the fisherman in Homeworld, he'll give you a shark tooth necklace. And if you take this necklace to his weird cultist alt self, you get a voodoo doll named Mojo that Maddy was talking about to join your team. And both of these are optional, explore all the things, and then re-explore all the things when you go to the different dimension to get these characters, which is cool. But We also started our quest to get Skelly, who is the long con character. He's in your party and can talk when he wants to, but he's not playable until you get all 5 pieces of his body. We've had the opportunity to get 2 or 3 of them so far. Were you able to get his femur on y'all's route, or will we all have to go back to?
Was his femur in the forest?
Yes.
Fuck, no, I haven't gotten it.
Go back.
I'll have to go back later. I looked it up, and I'm pretty sure that none of his body parts are missable. But I'm very committed to getting Skelly because I love him. One quick thing about Skelly you may not have noticed, because I didn't notice until my girlfriend brought it up. When you go to Termina, there's a certain building where you talk to this old grandma lady, and she talks about her son who went off to join the circus, but she hasn't heard from him in a long time, and she hopes he's okay. And it turns out that's Skelly.
Oh no!
But it's very sad, and he even is like sad. You feel like he wants to talk to his mom, but he can't because he's a dead skull. But it's really good. It actually made me feel a lot of feelings. But here's the thing: if you talk to like the mom's maid, she tells you more about Skelly. She's actually the one who says, "Oh, her son's name was Skelly," which I realized. My girlfriend said, "Wait a second, he was named Skelly like in his normal life before he died and became a skeleton. He's just called Skelly." So I thought that was hilarious. So yeah,
that's great.
Maybe it was a nickname. And it just coincidentally became true hilariously. But yeah, so that's why you have a skull who is painted like a circus clown, because he is a circus clown who became a skeleton, but his name was already Skelly for unrelated reasons.
Yes. Remember where his mom's house is, because that's how you get him to join your team. After you get all 5 pieces, you go and you show them to her,
which
and she puts them back together.
They have like a sweet reunion. I'm very invested in this subplot. I've got to help Skelly.
It's so good. So if you are not like me and Maddy and you're rude to Kid's face 4 or 5 times in a row, you get Lena, who's the best blue mage in the game. Nikki is like second best, so I don't feel bad that I didn't get her. But it would really suck if you got Lena and then did Nikki's route, because it's a waste. They replace each other. But and then if you didn't already get Pushul, you get him there. And one thing to note is every single person in this game who has a portrait, one of their versions of them can join your party at some point, which is real cool. Yeah. And I think that's all that I caught so far. So let's talk about our memorable moments as we listen to another kick-ass track. So, memorable moments. I have a lot because I was taking detailed notes. Maddy, did you think of any while you were...
I have just a few. I have literally 2, so I'll put them in later.
Okay. What about you, Eli?
I didn't write any down because I fail at this every time. Okay, so I do like Kid as a character. I don't like her in my party. And I probably will not be bringing her in my party anymore, even though she has Pilfer, which is nice, but she gives people paper cuts. Like her attack is very, very low. At least it feels that way. And maybe because I didn't get enough stuff to make her a good weapon.
So far, everyone in my party except for Surge does bullshit damage. So maybe that's just a thing with this game so far.
Yeah, very likely. I was using the Pilfer ability for a while, but then I was just like, oh, it's just taking up time. Yeah, I don't really have anything in particular. I think there were a couple of lines that I gave a sensible chuckle to. I can't remember what they were though. I mean, everybody's got a lot of character, just like in Chrono Trigger.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me of a thing that I did want to bring up in the last section. Speaking of everyone having a lot of character, the reason everyone has dumbass accents is to make it not have the Final Fantasy VI problem of party member 3 without their name in the text box will just say something and it's not in character. It's just someone needs to say, look out behind you. And so party member 3 will say it no matter who you have in party member number 3. Yeah. So to fix that, they did a really, really cool thing like I've only heard of Andrew Hussey doing it before, but I'm sure literally every other game since then has done it. So all of the text in the script of the game is written in just plain English or plain Japanese. No crazy accents on it. But then the character who's talking has an accent filter put on it. So if you're playing as Mojo, who speak like that, and so it will just random words will just add to the end of it. If it ends in a consonant, it'll add to the end of it, and might change a couple of things to be more magical sounding like him, or it'll be in Cockney if Kid needs to say it, or it'll be in French if Harley needs to say it.
It's all done programmatically.
And, yeah, it just takes the input and changes it, which is how Hussey wrote everything for all of the trolls, because he got tired after introducing one troll that had a typing quirk that wasn't just all caps for Carcat, and he's like, I don't want to do this ever again. So he just made a converter to do it. But yeah, that was really cool, because so all the characters do seem really, really alive, and the programming is there to back them up on that.
That's a good segue for me, because you just mentioned Mojo. So I said I only had 2 honorable moments. That's not true. I have 3, and one of them will take a second. Mojo is amazing. I want to walk you through a little bit more what happens here. I mean, it won't take that long, but anyway, so you go. The theme of this game with the 2 dimensions is all the fucking NPCs, like so many characters, all have like regrets. And they all wonder what things would have been like if only things had gone differently when they made that big decision. Oh, I don't know, 10 years ago. Oh, also a plot thing, Sam, that you didn't quite clarify is that it's not just that there are 2 dimensions. There are 2 dimensions because of Surge not dying 10 years ago. That event, apparently it was like, he had an exactly 50-50 chance of not dying. So when he didn't die, it made the dimension split. Also, it's kind of implied that the one where he did die is sort of the real timeline. But anyway, so the alternate dimensions have only existed for 10 years. That's where it diverged. Anyway, the point is, all the NPCs will all say something like, oh, I've been here my whole life, but sometimes I wonder what it would be like if I went on a journey to become a poet. And then in the other dimension, you'll go to her house and she's not there. Stuff like that. And it's really, really cool. And you get a lot of waxing philosophic about those sort of feelings. So one of them is in the original village, or your small village of Arnie Village. You go to this room, and there's a top and a bottom, and in the top, the wife is like, I love my husband, he's a sweetheart, he provides for us, he's great. The daughter is like, yeah, he's great. And then you go down, you go downstairs, and it's this big, beautiful room with a giant fucking marlin splayed across the top. And there's fish everywhere, and it's full of all this fishing stuff. And you talk to the man, and he's like, yeah, I've been hanging out in this room lately feeling kind of nostalgic. And he's like, this room represents my life's work. Like, this room represents the last 10 years of my life. And he talks about how 10 years ago, I actually forget what it was he wanted to do, but he thought about taking a different path, but he didn't. Actually, it wasn't 10 years ago. I believe it was fewer than that. No, actually, whatever. It doesn't matter. But he used to think about taking a different path, but he didn't. And then he's like, I really do. I wonder. He talks about how, what if it had been different? And he kind of goes off. And then after that, he reels himself back in. And he's like, but you know what? There's no use worrying about that. I really do genuinely, like, my life here is happy and pleasant and serene, and I absolutely love my wife. I love my kid. I'm just in my head. I shouldn't be worrying about that kind of thing, and it's really cool. And then in the other dimension, but he says, hey, thanks for listening to me, because every single person in this game will confide in a complete stranger at the drop of a hat all of their deepest emotions. So I mean, he's not a stranger, but in the other dimension, you are, right? So like, Serge talks to anyone, and they're just like, hey, let me tell you all my feelings. So anyway, because he's kind of gotten over his funk, because he's gotten out of his shtick, he says, you know what, Serge, take this like marlin bone or marlin tooth or fish tooth, something like that. And he's like, I don't need it anymore. I used to hold on to this to remember what could have been. What if I'd been the big time fisherman? But you know what? It's no use thinking about that. I love my life and I need to be content. So here, go ahead and take this thing. So you take it. After you transition through dimensions, you go to the same place, and the top is similar. You talk to the mom, and she's like, my husband used to be fine, but 7 years ago, he started worshiping that doll. And the kid is like, my dad is down in his room every day forever and never talks to me. I miss my dad. It's because I was expecting something like, oh, he decided to go be the big fisherman. He followed his dream, right? No. You go down there, and it's completely different. It's a shrine with like mystical runes on the bottom, on the floor, and a fucking stuffed doll made of hay up on a pedestal, and the man is genuflecting, and there's funky weird music playing, and you talk to him, and he's like, hey, I don't know who you are. You look kind of like that kid died 10 years ago. And he's basically like, 10 years ago, our village experienced a tragedy when a young boy died, and it wasn't my son or anything, but it happened, and it really got me fucked up thinking about it. And I was really sad thinking about death, and then I got really scared of my own death, and it threw me into an existential funk. And then I discovered the joy of Mojo. And Mojo brings happiness, and Mojo brings peace, and Mojo brings inner bliss. And I don't know what I would be like if it wasn't for Mojo. And it's fucking hilarious. And I show him the thing from the other dimension, thinking it'll like snap him out of it and make him realize what really matters in life. But instead, he's like, what is this? And then you just straight up tell him, you're like, hey, I got this from another version of you that exists. And he goes, another me? There's another me out there? And he takes it very philosophically. He's like, another me. But then he gets mad and he's like, fuck you. You're a lie. You're a lie sent from the devil. You're trying to distract me from the truth of Mojo. Get the fuck out. So then you try to leave, but as you try to leave, the fucking doll starts moving. And he fucking comes to life basically like a goddamn Frosty the Snowman. And he's like, hey! And the guy's like, what the hell? It's moving? What the hell? Mojo's alive? And then Mojo basically is like, hey, man, stop being weird. And then he goes to you and he's like, I don't remember why he does it. He's just like, I'm joining you. I want to go on an adventure. So he joins your party and you just fucking leave. And I'm like, we just completely destroyed this guy's life. like, don't get me wrong. He was in a bad place, but we didn't like show him the error of his ways. He's just like, hey, this thing that you devoted your life to. Yeah. He's like, okay, bye, see ya. It's hysterical and amazing. And I love Mojo. I named him Hambo because he's a himbo, but he's also made of hay, so he's a Hambo. I know it makes it sound like he's a pig because it's ham, but whatever, he's Hambo. Hambo at first sucked ass in combat, but then he ended up being pretty good, and now I really love him. He has a shit ton of HP and a couple of good moves, although he mostly has bad stats, but he has a couple of good moves and a lot of HP and a very high evasion stat. Later, when you are in Termina, you go to a person's house and they have a side room, and in that side room, there's a side room. It's a door that leads out to the garden, and in the garden there's a scarecrow, or sort of. It's a thing that looks just like Hambo. It's a straw doll, and Hambo's like, oh, "Is that you?" And then he like tries to talk to it, and he's like, "There's no response." It turns out he has a long lost brother that he's searching for. Which this thing was probably just an inanimate object. It wasn't his long lost brother, but he has a long lost brother he's searching for. So, point is, Hambo is by far my favorite character in the entire game. He's really, really good. I can't wait to see what happens with him next. It's very strange. I also just realized the reason you joined your party on a whim was probably because you were talking to this guy about another version of himself. So maybe he's like, oh, maybe you can help me find the other version of myself. Maybe the Hambo I'm looking for is in the home dimension. Maybe that's what's going on with the subplot. I don't really know. Anyway, that's what's going on with Hambo. Thanks for listening. I will keep you updated on the Hambo story. Secondly, when you're in Viper Manor, there's this chest that you can go to. And when you're in this chest, Karsh is in the room. You're in Karsh's bedroom.
Yeah, this is one of mine too.
Actually, yes, this is a memorable moment for me because well,
actually, Eli, you can share it since you don't have any other ones.
Yeah. So you go into Karsh's room. There's a chest in there, and you try to take the stuff from it, and he's like, "No, don't do that." And so, like, I just kept clicking on it. I was like, "I'm gonna do it again," and he's like, "Seriously, what the fuck? Stop!" And I just kept doing it. He kept getting more annoyed, and then finally he starts counting how many times I've done it. It's like, that's 8 times.
Just begging
that's
you to keep
9
doing
times.
It.
Yeah. I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna keep fucking going because this is some Undertale shit right here, and I live for that. So, I'm hitting it and hitting it. He gets up to 19, and then at the 20th one, he's like, "Ugh, God, you're so fucking annoying. Just take it." And you get a Dragoon gauntlet, and it's really good.
I'm surprised that the two of y'all were stubborn enough to actually get it. Like, I'm stubborn, but y'all aren't stubborn idiots like I am.
When I find something that reminds me of Undertale, I'm gonna fucking do it.
I love that part.
There's a lot of that in this game.
And I legitimately didn't expect it, because the thing is, again, programmatically, it's really easy to write a line that says, you've just done the chest X number of times, and just put X as the number of times you did it as a simple variable. I literally figured it was just going to go infinitely, but I was like, well, I might as well get it to like 30 or maybe 50, and then I'll stop. And then when I hit 20, he's like, fine, fucking take it already. I was like, fuck you.
Yes! Got it.
Was that the only... I think I had one more, but I don't remember what it was. There's a lot of lines in this game that are either pretty fucking funny. There's also a number of lines that I found very beautiful. Some of it's more philosophical musings, but I didn't get a screenshot of them because I didn't have a good setup for doing that. So, oh well, I'll share whatever one. You'll hear about those next time. I'm not saying I'm going to tell you these. I'm saying I'm sure there will be more.
Yes. So, the ones I have that are less left over. Real quick one, the in-battle music is the same as the in-battle music from Chrono Trigger, and I like that touch.
Which is Luca's theme, which is important because Luca is actually in this game. Spoiler.
Yes. And then I have a couple of skits I'd like to perform for you. I'm working on these characters. All right, guys, let's make a sequel to Chrono Trigger. Hell yeah. So, what's most important about being a Chrono Trigger? Is it the time travel? Akira Toriyama's art style? An active time battle system? Guy in the back. It's moving during dialogue boxes and opening the shutters in your bedroom. All right, sir, you're director now.
Look, was he wrong?
He was not. Now, the other one is Director Sakaguchi. We're going to call the gates through time gates. Director Takahashi. Call the gates through space, Angelus Errare, where angels lose their way.
I forgot about that.
That's a sum up of the differences in these two games.
They really are.
I also love that the password to get into Viper Manor is silence. It's because it gives you like 13 different passwords to choose from, and you have analysis paralysis, and you're like, what do I pick? And they're like, that's right. The password is silence.
So I was looking that up while like I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, I've got all these choices. I better look up a guide. And so I'm looking it up. And as I'm looking it up, it's like, you did it. And I'm like, oh, well, all right.
That's
then.
funny as shit.
I'll just go get my stuff. Thank you.
Actually, Sam, I want to share if actually you just made me remember something on the subject of Takahashi-san, or more importantly, Masato Kato-san, and honestly, more importantly, fucking Mitsuda-san. I'm sure this is his idea. Here's some soundtrack song titles. Reminiscence, tilde, unerasable memory, or Between Life and Death, or The Dream of the Shore Bordering Another World, or Ephemeral Memory, or Lost Fragment, or Departed Souls, or A Child Lost in Time, or that's it. That isn't spoilers. Anyway, it's just that kind of game, folks.
Yeah. Also, in Chrono Trigger, Sakaguchi-san was like, all right, this chapter is called The Vanished Princess. Takahashi-san is like, this one's called A Calling from Beyond Time, or A Reminder of One Former Self, or Where Lies the Key to the Past. He's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Fucking rules.
But then, besides there being a Man of the Sea reference that I shotted, the only other one I have is my favorite line. I remembered it from the first time I played it, and when it showed up this time, I was super excited. But when you meet Harley and she sees that you're with kids, she's like, Serge, if you lie down with a dog like this, femme, you will surely catch fleas, no? And it's great. Just fucking love it. Says that she got crabs.
Bernard told me about an interesting hidden extra joke here. Around this point, she says something to Kid in French. And what she says to her in French, which for the record, most of the French is horrendously inaccurate. But this part is not. She uses the word that very literally translates to flee. So she's like, get out of here. But she says, you need to flee. And then she immediately after that, like the next dialogue box says the line about fleas.
That's cute.
Also,
love that.
Not to butt in again, it's just since you're doing this bit, I have to say this because you're doing this bit. This game only has 2 songs that are not MIDI. It's the opening theme, Time Scar, that y'all heard earlier, and the ending theme. The guy who plays guitar on those 2 songs is the same guy who plays the guitar in the songs in Xenogears.
Of course.
So there you go.
But that's all that I have. Besides, I had a little note in here about the Poor Army, which I already went over, but it being a weird Dalton tie-in, like stretching so hard to make it work, is kind of makes me feel like this game should have been a spiritual sequel to Chrono Trigger, and me taking it as a spiritual sequel to Chrono Trigger is a lot easier to eat. To palate was the word I was looking for. Than because like all of the actual sequel stuff is kind of like it's a sequel, bend over backwards, look upside down, squint, and you can see it sequel stuff, and it probably would have been fine to just have all the references and not have to literally somehow take place after Chrono Trigger.
I'm going to spoil this. You're not going to feel that way by the end of the game.
Yeah, I feel we'll see that going forward, and knowing the few spoilers that I do for the end, I wonder because that's Chrono Cross has that reputation that it should have just been a spiritual successor, and I wonder if those people didn't beat it either, because that's how I'm feeling now, and I know spoilers later that make it a lot more intricately tied. But
you know how Majora's Mask was. Literally, we took all the stuff from Ocarina of Time, but it's an alternate dimension, and we just kind of remix everything. So characters are appearing in different forms and in different ways. Even though this game is literally canonical with Chrono Trigger, I feel like it's the same thing. Kind of like how, like you say, oh, Guile was intended to be Magus, but then they decided not to.
Magus.
In my opinion, I'm like, he still is Magus. Just like, in a weird Majora's Mask, he's Magus and he isn't Magus kind of way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I see this whole game.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I thought you were going to be talking longer, so I grabbed a chip.
Nope, that's it. Good guess.
But yeah, like it's that same way with Glenn. Like Glenn and Surge learn X Strike together. Like Glenn is hella frog. He's not frog, unrelated, and like that's kind of all over this game. Even though, as we mentioned, Luca shows up later, so it's wild. But where are we stopping, Maddy?
We are stopping. Again, very, very, very easy to understand. We're eventually going to go to Fort Dragonia, which, spoiler, is the thing we saw from the beginning of the game.
Okay.
It's, according to chapter headings, it should be actually less playtime, although it might be more dungeons, but less plot stuff. Anyway, Fort Dragonia is pretty long, and a lot of shit happens. And again, I don't remember if there's a... Why do
Luna,
I always forget that word? Either there's a Luna or there isn't, but you go until all that shit resolves because it's a lot.
Okay. Cool. Fort Dragonia, resolve it, save as soon as you can. Hopefully that's at a Luna.
Yeah, save either at a Luna or when you are in the next place that is not Fort Dragonia.
Yes. But if you like what you heard today, you can support us on Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/RPG Book Club. And if you didn't like what you heard, you can go and support us anyways. But
I mean, if you want,
if you support us, you help unlock bonus series, and the next bonus series of Dot Hack will start recording in a week.
Oh,
so we're slowly catching up on all of those that we owe everybody. And if you want us to finish Dot Hack, you can go and support us there. If you just want to talk with us, which is totally fine, talking with you guys is one of my favorite things in the entire world. You can hit us up on www.rpgbook.club to have links to all of our socials, and you can just chat with us. Shout outs to Justin, who joined the Discord earlier today and hasn't said anything.
Oh, I didn't see that. Nice. Welcome, Justin.
But other than that, for RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
I'm Maddy Grace Spiffle-Webbin, and I'm a big dummy.
And toodaloo, folks.
Bye, nerds.
I almost bought a PS2 for $10. The only reason I didn't is it didn't have those composite cables, and I don't have any games handy that I would be able to play on it. And the only games they had at the garage sale where I was going to buy it were like Madden and Britney's Dance Beat and stuff like that. And so just it would have been a lot more money than the $10 it looked like to be able to actually do anything.
Right.
And so it wasn't as much of an impulse buy as...
Well, Sam, I'm offended by your discounting of Britney's Dance Beat.